The following is a presentation of the Retro Network.
Hello, SequelQuesters. This is a SequelQuest Rewind. Diving back into the archive to February of 2016, this is episode 12, a sequel to The Princess Bride.
Welcome to SequelQuest, the podcast where Adam, Jeff, and Jeremy invite you on a cinematic journey to create prequels, sequels, and reboots to your favorite movie franchises. Joined by special guests along the way. SequelQuest is go for launch, so let the adventure begin now.
Welcome to this episode of SequelQuest. We are very excited to have you. This is our Valentine special episode, and we got some surprises for you, absolutely. Today we are going to be discussing the 1987 Rob Reiner film, The Princess Bride, starring Cary Elwes, Robin Wright, Mandy Patinkin, Andre the Giant, Chris Sarandon, Christopher Guest, Fred Savage, and Peter Falk. So
who's Chris Sarandon?
Chris Sarandon is Prince Humperdinck.
Oh, is it really?
It is, yeah, I know. It's like, who is that guy?
Exactly.
What else have we seen him in?
I just know their names. I mean, most people don't know who the heck Wallace Shawn is, but if you say, his famous line, then they know.
Yeah, absolutely. It's inconceivable that you would not be joining us today, but you are. And we, like I said, something special is going on today. Jeremy and Justin are taking a break, and we actually have some special guest hosts with us today in the spirit of romance, in the spirit of love. Jeff and I have brought our wives on board with us to give us a female perspective, give us a good, kick in the pants if necessary. First off, allow me to introduce the woman to whom I have given my heart. I know, isn't this so romantic? We're starting off like that. Let me put it this way. When we got married, she made sure that I understood that what is mine, she said, and what is yours is also mine. Love and romance. No, I'm just kidding. But the one thing she does not want, if we're going to say something that is now hers that belonged to me previously, she does not want my vast collection of terrible films. Although the one
on VHS.
But with that, allow me to introduce my wife, Kristin. Say hello.
Why, hello.
What are your thoughts about being on the show this week?
It's a little exciting, very interesting to see what it is that you do every week when I'm asleep.
Late night recording sessions. But also with that, Jeff has someone he would like to introduce.
Yeah, this is my wife, Judy.
Hey.
Hi, Judy. So glad to have you here. So what was your
There's
first
the two couples differences in a nutshell.
That so sums it up. Although I do have to say, the one thing that I will throw out, and I feel like we might have said this and it might have gotten cut in all of the nonsense of our pilot episode, is that in a lot of ways, Judy is way more qualified to be on this podcast than I will ever be. She actually has a master's in media and went to school to study film. So she kind of knows what she's talking about, and she will dumb it down so that she can have conversations with me. I think it's a good match having us her guest host with us today.
Yeah, way to make me feel insecure, Jeff.
Sorry.
Now, Judy, I will say that just so you understand, Jeff mentions you frequently on the episodes. I don't know how many you've listened to, but listeners will know Jeff's always like, my wife was telling me. My wife mentioned. So very, very frequent.
I have noticed that.
Yeah. He depends on you for all the witty and informative information he provides to us.
Informative information. That's usually what we get. Yep.
Is that a double positive? What do you call that? Informative information. Just redundant?
That's a popeism. That's
well, Jeff has big, huge, and now I have informative information. So I'm just curious now, as we're getting into The Princess Bride, when I think about this film, it seems to kind of fall into the realm of Basically a film that everybody's familiar with on some level, generally speaking. Like, it's kind of like Star Wars or A Christmas Story. Like, it's run across TV at some point. You've seen it. You know a line or 2 or 12 from the movie. But, Judy, for example, what is your experience with The Princess Bride?
Well, this is a movie that as kids we watched like over and over and over. Like, I grew up watching this movie. I don't know if it was the first movie I saw. It might have been like the second movie I saw. So definitely something I've seen a lot and grew up watching. And like me and my brothers would like act out our favorite scenes, like little skits. So yeah, and I just watched it like last week, not even for this podcast, just with friends. We had a friend who hadn't seen it. We're like, what? You need to watch this. So so I've seen it a lot. It's just part of like my DNA, I think, at this point. So, but yeah, it's a great movie. There's something for everybody. So, I can't say enough about how fun it is. So, and it still holds up from when I was a kid. Yeah,
we have a true fan. I like it. Now, Jeff, what about you? Where did you come in with The Princess Bride?
Somewhat similar, although this one wasn't necessarily one of our family's like staples, but it was one that like you said, Adam, it seemed like it was on television every single Saturday. And when it would be on, like I would always flip by it and watch it. It wasn't one of those that when I started watching it, I'd have to watch it to the end. Like there are some of those movies, it can be 2 a.m. and I see Flight of the Phoenix is on. I'm staying up until 5 to watch the end of it. Like it's just that kind of a movie for me. This wasn't that, but I would always stay on it for a little while, maybe see one of my favorite scenes. I know like Judy was talking about when her friends came over last weekend and showing it to her the first time. There was even the one, what was the one line? Oh, it was with Miracle Max, and the end of the Miracle Max scene, like I had to just poke my head in just to hear "Have fun storming the castle" before, going off into my room. So, it's definitely, obviously, even though it doesn't necessarily grab me all the time, it is, like you said, that kind of like part of the DNA that just is there. It's just kind of like a force of nature, I guess, where it's you almost can't even categorize it anymore.
Unstoppable, this film.
Yeah. It's the funny thing, like Judy was saying, I think that's such a great testimony to it, is the fact that when someone who grew up in Germany says, "Oh, I've never seen this movie," we're still shocked. What? You've never seen what? No, that's insane. Like, it's just the expectation that everyone's seen it, everyone loves it, you can quote it, and people will know what you're talking about.
Yeah, now, I'll say on my part, I was introduced to it. I think a lot of people see it with their families. It's probably one of those kind of family films everybody can enjoy. But I was about 6 or 7. It was probably like 1988. It was new on VHS. We were at a family reunion, so I'm sitting there with all my cousins, my aunts and uncles, everybody, and somebody popped in this movie, and like even before the movie started, I was on edge because TriStar Pictures, which is what it kind of falls under, they have this logo that's like from very far away you see this ghostly white horse like eerily galloping towards the camera, and then at the last second,
Pegasus.
Yeah, it turns into a Pegasus. Exactly. These wings sprout out, and then it flies at you and it disappears. And I was just like, what has happened? Ghost horse, like what is going on here? And so I was like already scared. And then as the film continued on, I honestly just got more and more terrified. Like it was not an enjoyable experience for me at all. I mean, there's, obviously you have, screaming eels and the ROUSs, those rats of unusual size. But then you also have that scene where Christopher Guest as Tyrone, the six-fingered man, goes and sucks the life out of Cary Elwes as Wesley, who's the main character. It hooks him up to this machine, and he just lets out this like death rattle, scream, whatever you're going to call it. And I was done. Like I blanked out at the point of that movie because I'm just like, I cannot, why are they doing this to me? And obviously like over the years, as I started appreciating it, the one thing I could hold on to was, Inigo Montoya, he was noble. He's got his famous line, hello, my name is Inigo Montoya. You killed my father, prepare to die. Just like, to me, like, I could hang on to that at least. But afterwards, I was just like, okay, well, I'll check it out. And it is obviously just like amazing now. I love it as an adult. It's kind of like the Batman 1966 series where you tuned in for one thing as a kid, and then as an adult now you can appreciate all the humor. But I'm just very curious here because we quote a lot of this film is quoted fairly frequently in our house as well. The one we probably come up with, Jeff mentioned Miracle Max, but we always just, it's like, he clearly said to Blathe, which we all know means to bluff. He was probably cheating at cards and he lost, liar, wife coming in. But I just love when she's like, I'm not a witch, I'm your wife. But after what you just said, I'm not even sure I want to be dad anymore. You never had it so good. Like, I just love the little turn to the camera. So anyway, but now that's kind of where I'm at. Obviously I own it, I watch it, I love it. But Kristin has a very kind of interesting story just in terms of this film and her history as well, which is different from all of ours.
That is true. I didn't actually see this movie until I was in college, and people reacted to me the way that you react to others, saying, I can't believe you haven't seen this. It's amazing. And so I was like, okay. So I'd actually read the book first. And I don't know if you've ever read the book, but the middle section, it's all this like deep political social commentary. And it was really, really boring. And so I skipped that part. It's been a few years, or I could tell you more. So I read the book first and I was like, oh yeah, that'd be a pretty good movie. And then I tried to go and watch it several times on campus, and it was always sold out. And I was like, why is it always sold out? This is an old movie. And so I finally saw it, and it was good. It was good, but it was good. My roommate had the soundtrack, and she actually tried to play it while she was sleeping, but it's like intense. And there was the music from the Cliffs of Insanity, where it was like, na 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 na. And it was very stressful for me at night. It made me anxious in my sleep.
So I think it's interesting, and I don't know how many people realize that there was a real book, like
the real actual book.
Yeah, the grandfather's reading a book that he says is by S. Morgenstern, but it was actually written by a famous screenwriter named William Goldman, and so he wrote it for his daughters. Like, he just went to two of them, and they said, he's like, what should my next book be about? And they're like, do what about a princess? And I was like, do what about a bride? Okay, The Princess Bride. Then he just started writing.
Yeah.
So, and it was like written in 1973. They tried to make it like several times, like so many studios, like they went bankrupt, or then studio heads changed or whatever, and the film just never came together until, around 1986, when Rob Reiner finally got a chance to be the director. Where do you guys fall on Rob Reiner films? Jeff, Judy.
Well, I know even before that, I know Judy, because Judy, you read the book too. Is that right?
Yeah. I read the book, and it's really funny because, kind of like Kristin was saying, there's all that political stuff. Like, I remember it being written as an inside joke almost, where William Goldman is like, this is the book my dad used to read me as a kid, The Princess Bride. But when he read it to me, like the Peter Falk character, he would edit out all the boring political stuff.
That's right.
So I'm rewriting it for you guys, and I'm cutting all that stuff out. So you have a chapter where it's like, this would be where he would talk about Florin's economy, but it's boring, so I'm skipping it. And that would be like the entirety of the chapter. So it's just really funny the way the book kind of, at least as I remember, I haven't read it in a long time. So
Jeff, we have married very literate, beautiful, wise women. What's wrong with us?
Yeah. Well, because and I know and I don't know if you remember, Adam, there was because Adam and I used to work for Disney, and when we worked with Disney, there was one, oh gosh, I can't remember her name. There was the one gal who had an injury to her eye, so she would always wear an eye patch, and she loved this book. She was okay on the movie, but she carried this book with her everywhere she went, and she would tell people about it and read it over and over and over again. And I think what's so interesting, kind of like Judy was saying, which is kind of the shame, I think, about I guess kind of with The Hobbit, but especially with the Wicked I guess they haven't made a movie yet, but the musical, is that the book of Wicked is written very kind of like meta, where it's designed to be kind of like, let's take a step out and look at this from the outside. So it's the same thing with this book. It sounds like the book is done almost like the movie, where it's like a story being told to somebody else. So it's like the narrator's putting himself in the story. And I think that's a really interesting way to write a book. And it's an even more interesting way that they turned that into a movie. And I love, that dynamic where you've got, interrupting, like, oh, is this that kissing part again? Can we just skip back? And it gives it such an interesting twist, I think, that, I think that's you don't get to see that very often, turning a meta book into a meta movie.
Right. And just getting back to Rob Reiner, as I was mentioning before, the director, this was only his third film. Now, he went on to, When Harry Met Sally and all these other films. He's pretty famous, and he'd been an actor before on All in the Family in the 70s. But his first film was one of my top, 5 films of all time, which is This Is Spinal Tap. So...
Oh my goodness. He had to bring this up.
It's a great film.
Reiner.
The amp was an 11.
Yeah, it's the thing, like you're saying, Adam, is that even this is his third movie. He still hasn't made a whole ton of movies. It's crazy that he's such a Hollywood heavyweight. But this is one of the very few movies, because I think he's made less than 10 films, I believe, as a director. Yeah,
it's more about his influence in the industry, right? He's just kind of involved and very a part of that. But he was he was the perfect guy, because that first film, Spinal Tap, was a mockumentary. It was a satire of the rock and roll lifestyle. His second film was a romantic film, essentially kind of a romantic comedy called The Sure Thing. And so it was basically taking romance and taking satire and putting them together. He knew how to do both now. So now he gives us The Princess Bride, which is, aside from like the casting being pretty much perfect across the board, like everybody's fantastic. But like you guys said, just William Goldman wrote the book. He also wrote the screenplay. So it stayed pure to what it was from the start. But I guess when I think about The Princess Bride too, like I actually, like even more so, I think over the years, it's only growing in popularity. I went to a Comic-Con here a couple of years ago, and I'll put this up on the Twitter and on the website, but I actually ran into a guy dressed as the Dread Pirate Roberts, so like he was ready to go. I'm sure he got a lot of action at the, on the Comic-Con floor there, but it was just, a great representation of, here's the fandom out there. But I'm curious, from a female perspective, is Wesley, is he that romantic character that every girl is dreaming of? Like no particular opinions, just knows he loves her and he's willing to fight for her. Like where do you come in on that?
I'd say he's pretty much a dreamboat.
Judy?
I don't know. I mean, I think the last time I watched it, I was kind of maybe slightly less impressed with their actual like dynamic of love, because it is kind of like, why do they love each other? Like no one has done anything of substance, or like it's just kind of like he's there, she's there, so love obviously. But Cary Elwes, he's cute, he's dashing, he can sword fight, so you can kind of get why she likes him, but I don't understand why he likes her other than that she's beautiful. Like she has she's not really that interesting, actually. So
well, and speaking of the sword fighting, the other thing that I learned recently I thought was amazing is that Cary Elwes and Mandy Patinkin actually did all of the sword fighting, like especially that epic battle that they have above the Cliffs of Insanity. That's all them. Like the only thing that was not them was when they do kind of that gymnastics routine with the spinning
flips and stuff.
Yeah, but otherwise,
I do want to throw out, and I don't know, maybe I got to throw this out when we talked about The Matrix, but there's a couple of moments for me in my movie collections where I just kind of like, see, that's how you do it. And like for me, that still, in all the movies that I think I've seen, still greatest sword fight that I have ever seen. And it's not because it's that spectacular or that flashy or that like all the moves they're doing are so impressive, but it's the way that they sort like theatrically, it's the way that it sword fights, and that the ebb and the flow, and then like one person's getting the advantage, and then the drastic shift of like, I'm not left-handed, and oh my gosh, and blah 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 blah. Because then you see like, you know, George Lucas and now J.J. Abrams coming up with these lightsaber fights, and they go, especially George Lucas makes them all flashy, and they're doing flips and they're doing all that sort of stuff, but there's no theatrics. It's just, I'm going to try and swing this thing as fast as I possibly can. And for me, that's not what makes great sword fighting. Like this actually is.
Yes, and I would agree. I mean, it's just, from an entertainment perspective, it's the most entertainment you're going to get out of a sword fight. In addition, just the action it's well done. It's you know, competent sword fighting. I happen to be an expert on fencing and sword fighting, so I think I'm qualified to make such a statement. No, but I think with that, why don't we go and jump into our synopsis here? We're going to have one of our guest hosts pulled directly from IMDb. Why don't you tell us who wrote this synopsis as it states at the bottom, and then give it to us, Kristin.
This is written by a contributor named Scott Nisbet. When a young boy falls ill, his grandfather pops around to visit him. To cheer his grandson up, Grandpa has brought a storybook, The Princess Bride, a tale of the love between the beautiful Buttercup and the besotted Wesley, a love cruelly interrupted by Wesley's tragic apparent death at sea when seeking his fortune. Heartbroken, Buttercup has sworn never to love again, but accepts the marriage proposal of the rich and handsome Prince Humperdinck, heir to the throne of Florin. But death is no barrier to true love. And in a story filled with exotically accented swordsmen, big-hearted giants, genius kidnappers, sadistic torturers, vile swamps, rodents of unusual size, the dread pirate Roberts, and a somewhat embittered miracle worker, the love between Wesley and Buttercup twists and turns on a path filled with adventure. Will the true love of Wesley and Buttercup win the day? Will Inigo Montoya find the six-fingered man who murdered his father? Will Humperdinck's evil plans come to fruition? And more importantly, will Grandpa be able to tell the story without any of the yucky kissing?
Oh, Mr. Nisbet. My goodness. He hit that thesaurus hard, I will tell you.
I suppose so. Although he did ask questions that he didn't give us the whatever. We've seen it, so it's fair enough.
Yeah. But I mean, I'm just as we get ready to go into our pitches, I'm just curious, like, go around the table here. What is everybody's favorite character in this film? Like, who is the character that you connect with the most? I think either we're going to be surprised or we're going to be like, aha,
well, that's two
it.
different questions, though, isn't it?
What?
That you connect with as opposed to your favorite.
Okay, well, let's just go with favorite then, Jeff, whatever that means to you. Do you want to start?
Well, because for me, it would be two separate ones. So, I mean, I guess I'd have to... Whew, it's so tough. I mean, it's hard not to say Inigo Montoya, because I'm the exact same way with you, Adam, where it was, I think every boy wanted to be, nobody wants to be Wesley. Come on. Everybody wants to be Inigo. That's the one to be. But for me, like, I guess Wallace Shawn, because of all of his other stuff and just the fact that, like, finally, like, he's getting recognition for being just as he is, and he's the same in every single movie, but we love just that wormy, whiny little, like, oh, he's so wonderful. And yeah, that would just he did more different than I think anyone could have expected.
Judy, how about you?
Oh man, at the risk of sounding like we are totally agreeing, I was gonna say Vizzini as well. Like, all of his lines are like quotable, and partly because the writing is so good, but also just because of Wallace Shawn. Like, whatever, his voice, I don't know, his size, everything like makes it that much more funny. And that whole speech he gives, like, almost in one take, I think, where it's about, you fell victim to the classic blunder. Like, that's just gold. Like, no one can beat that. That's great. When we watched that the other day, I made our friends watch that scene twice, because I'm like, we just got to watch this and then you can go home. So yeah, he's just like and I even asked my friend, like, wait, have you seen this movie? She's like, I don't know. And I'm like, was there a guy saying inconceivable? Do you remember that? And she was like, no. I'm like, then you haven't seen this movie. Because if you've seen the movie, like, if you can't remember anything else, you remember inconceivable. So I feel like he like makes the movie. He's the bow on the whole thing.
Yeah. I'll say for me, like I am always in the situation of like he has, probably the least amount of screen time, but Billy Crystal as Miracle Max.
That was mine. You stole mine. We must be married or something.
How about that? We love old Jewish wizards. I mean, I don't know what to say. Yeah. Why do you love him, dear? Let's just do this together.
Well, I love Billy Crystal. I love everything Billy Crystal is in, always, forever. I love Billy Crystal.
I think I just
Wow.
I have a history of just loving old Jewish grandpas, like just
and grandmas for that matter.
Yeah, and grandmas, why not? And so, like, to me, like, I just that the whole attitude of it all is just great. Where it's like you're sort of know it all, you're sort of supportive at the same time. You're making underhanded comments and things. There's just so much going on in every statement that you're just like, wow, it's wonderful. And so Miracle Max wins the day for me.
Yeah, and I love, and he's all out for revenge. I love him.
And just to throw out, which might be not little known, but maybe widely known facts, I guess, but about each one of them is that one that I guess Wallace Shawn was completely not what Rob Reiner was looking for Vicini. He was looking for something completely different, but then when Wallace auditioned, that's it, there we go, and they went in a completely different direction because of Wallace Shawn's depiction. And then with Billy Crystal, they said that apparently when they filmed Miracle Max's scenes, Rob Reiner couldn't be in the building because he couldn't stop laughing at every single line that Billy Crystal would say, so he literally left and wouldn't come back until they were done filming.
I believe it.
Yeah, wow. That's great. Well, I think we're about ready now to jump into the pitches. You kind of all know where we stand on the film, but what are our ideas? Where do you take it next? What is possible in this world? So, Judy, you told us that you had been preparing it for quite a while, so why don't you start us off?
Okay. Well, I will say that my story, as you'll see, kind of seeks to correct maybe the one flaw that my present self sees with the film. So see if you can pick up on it as I'm telling it. So this takes place about 20 years after the last movie ends, and Buttercup and Wesley have continued to live happily ever after. Their love is like the perfect love that keeps on going. And he has retired as the Dread Pirate Roberts, so they go back to live on that little farm, and they're just kind of in this little enclave of just the perfect life together. And they have a daughter who's named Rose or something. So, but she's actually kind of bored now. She's like 18 or 19, and she finds her life is really sheltered because they just, Wesley and Buttercup have no need for society. They're just so in love, and they're the kind of couple that the kids are always rolling their eyes at, going like, ew, mom, dad, that's gross. So she just lives with them and kind of longs for a more exciting life. She knows the story of, how her dad rescued her mom and everything. So she kind of wishes to have an adventure like that for herself. And the only kind of joy she has is that her father has taught her how to fence. And so she's really good at fencing. And so into this quiet life comes Inigo Montoya and his son. And for the past 20 years, he has been the Dread Pirate Roberts, because you kind of get that little mention at the very end of the movie by Wesley to Inigo about how we would make a great Dread Pirate Roberts. So he comes to visit them. They've remained friends over the years, and his son, who is Diego, and Rose kind of have somewhat grown up together, and Diego has always loved Rose and been infatuated with her, and she's kind of ambivalent. But so they come for a visit because Inigo wants to tell Wesley that he's retiring. He's planning to retire as the Dread Pirate Roberts, as is the custom, and he's going to pass on the mantle to his son Diego. But while they're there, Diego and Rose are off, and there'll be a scene where they get to fence, and you kind of see that she's actually way better than him at fencing. And he kind of admits that he's not really into the whole idea of becoming a pirate. That's not really his deal. But she's kind of like, what? Like, why wouldn't you want that? That sounds great. And so Inigo and Diego leave. They go to their ship. But then Rose sneaks off in the middle of the night and catches up with them and stows away on the ship. So and they don't find her until they're way out to sea. And it's kind of too late to take her back. So Inigo is kind of like, okay, I should take you back, because he's obviously, wanting to, not do anything wrong by her parents. But before he can take her back, they get attacked by, I don't know, what's the police, like the sea police at the time, whatever, like some armada attacks them because they're pirates, obviously. So they're always in danger of being attacked. So they get attacked, and Diego gets captured and is brought back to the castle to be arrested or whatever. So they mount this rescue plan. And so Rose convinces Inigo to let her stay, because she says that she can get into the castle disguised as like a washerwoman or something. And so he agrees to the plan. So, and I figure at this point there could be a really good fun scene where she's, dressed as a washerwoman and going through the castle. And there's kind of like the original movie, some chances for cameos by some famous comedians who live in the castle or whatever, especially like fellow washerwomen. So we could have, Melissa McCarthy's like a washerwoman, she's in there just having a random scene. So she manages to get Diego out of the dungeon or whatever, and they hook up with Inigo and they're heading back to the ship. But in the process, they realize that it was Humperdinck's castle. So we bring back Humperdinck. And so he kind of gets to them before they can get back to the ship. And he's going to arrest them all, but then he realizes who Rose is, that she's the daughter of his old nemesis. And keeping in with his cowardice, he's too scared to do anything that would upset Wesley. He's like, no, you got to take this girl back. Like, I'll keep the rest of you. And so he's trying to tell Inigo, like, you can take her and you can leave, but I'm keeping your son. But of course, Inigo's not going to accept that. So he attacks, and they kind of fight their way out of that situation and get back to the ship. But Inigo is like mortally wounded and, basically dying. So Diego has the knowledge to sail off and wherever they go. And so they go back to Miracle Max. So we get to have Billy Crystal back and Carol Kane. So yay. So they get to see them again, and Miracle Max heals Inigo, but he also kind of takes a shine to Diego and invites him to be his apprentice in the miracle business, which Diego actually really wants to do, but he can't, say no to his dad, has all this expectation of him becoming the Dread Pirate Roberts. So he says no. So they all leave again, and they're heading back again to see Wesley and Buttercup to return Rose. But then they're attacked again by the Armada, and it's going terribly, lots of good sword fighting. But then at the last second, another ship comes up, and it's Wesley. He's, coming after his daughter. So then you get, which I always wanted to see, Inigo and Wesley really sword fighting, like top-notch sword fighting, but on the same team. So, some cool fights there. So in the end, they kind of win, and there's probably another opportunity for Humperdinck to show up and be a coward and then flee. And then in the end, everyone talks it out, and so it's decided that Diego is going to go, and he's going to go back to Miracle Max and become an apprentice, and Rose is going to become the new Dread Pirate Roberts. So she is going to take the mantle passed down to her. And kind of at the same time, she realizes that she does love Diego, but their love story is going to have to wait for another movie or something. So it kind of ends with, the next generation taking on these new roles. The end.
Now that's a movie that I would go see.
Yeah, that sounded like a lot of fun. Yeah, definitely keeping with the spirit of it all. So I don't know if I did pick up on what you thought the flaw was in the film, or are you going to hint at it a little bit more for us, or do we have to guess?
Well, for me, the flaw is that, especially watching it now, Buttercup has like no agency as a character. She does nothing. Like, just things happen to her. There's like only one moment in the entire movie where she makes a decision and like does something about it. Is like she jumps in the water to escape, Vizzini, and she ends up in the water with the shrieking eels. And so it's kind of like she does nothing then really to save herself, but it's kind of like her one moment of like, I'm getting out of here. So for me, my whole problem is that Buttercup is just kind of like, someone save me. Oh, someone tell me what to do. And she does nothing the whole movie. So this was me trying to like create a female character that actually has some agency, makes decisions, has influence on the story. But is still like, she still gets to be part of the love story. I feel like that's kind of something we don't always get to see, where you either have the female character who's like in charge but unlikable, or she's a love object but not necessarily like, having, I don't know, like it's just never like always the right match to me. So I want to see a female character in this story being funny, being active, kind of like with the boys. Because, in the first movie, you just have the one female character and she's just kind of blah. So that's what I was trying to correct.
Definitely refreshing to have a female character who doesn't need to be saved.
See, and that's why I didn't pick up on it. I'm like, no, princess, you got to save her. That's what it's all about. Like the guy's perspective. We're like, powerful female characters.
The Princess Bride. That neither of those words say butt kicking like female. It just says,
warrior Princess Bride. So if Xena had been a warrior Princess Bride, then we would have understood. So Jeff, why don't you?
Yeah, but she spends that. Oh, I was just going to say, but she spends that whole second, like 20 minutes of the movie in the original where Wesley is dead, essentially. But she's like, he's coming, so I'm just going to marry you. He's coming, so I'm just going to sit here. And she's going to kill herself, but he's coming. And it's kind of like, like, why don't you sneak out or something? So that's kind of my deal.
Mm-hmm. Well, Jeff, were you peeking at Judy's notes, or do you have something wholly original here? That's what we're going to wait for. So tell us what you got.
And I did. Because when the Campbell Smiths came out to visit the Popes in November, Judy did read me her entire synopsis. So I tried to stay away as much as I could. Although I did kind of lean towards the whole Diego idea. Although at least for me, Indigo and Diego for me would get confusing. But I don't. I mean, if we all pronounce it like Fred Savage, where it was Indigo, then that makes it a little easier. Actually, no, that makes it worse. I don't know. But anyway, so for me, first off, again, I love the meta part, so I would want to keep the meta part of it. So in the sequel, I have Fred Savage now grown again about 20, 25 years older. Actually, I guess it doesn't matter how much older he is, but the story takes place 20 years later. But so now he's I don't know if he's the grandpa. I kind of figure he's more of the dad at this point. And so he's the dad who is now reading this story to his daughter. And his daughter, though, is more of kind of like a tomboy. So she's kind of rolling her eyes because he brings out the Princess Bride, and she's like, seriously, we're going to read this one? Come on, that's the one your dad read or your grandpa read. That's still all, there's all those kissing parts and blah, blah, blah. And she's just not into it. And so he's like, okay, like, what about this one? And then whatever the second title is called. So this one takes place 20 years later, and Wesley and Buttercup are now married, and Humperdinck flees in shame after the last film, abandoning his kingdom and his crown, which leaves, in some strange sense, it leaves the Princess Buttercup as the heir to the throne. So Wesley and Buttercup then become the new rulers of Florin. They have 3 children, and the oldest daughter, so she would be, I don't know, late teens or something like that, maybe her early 20s if it's later than 20 years. But it's kind of like, as the eldest princess, she's the one that has to get married first. Like it falls on her, et cetera, et cetera. And her parents, because of their story, they really are driving home this idea of like, no, you need to, like, there's that perfect love that's out there and the blah, 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 blah. And it's like love, 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 love. But the daughter is not into it at all. She 100% wants to marry for money. She wants to marry for power. Like, that's all she wants. And so she's like, there's this really horribly boring prince of, Gilda, that she's like, no, I'm going to marry him. That's going to unify the kingdoms. And then eventually we will be ruler over the entire blah, 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 blah. And so she's really like power hungry and everything like that. So Wesley decides to bring his old friend in, Inigo, who, again, has been the Dread Pirate Roberts, and covertly arranges for him to kidnap the princess in order to teach her a lesson. So the first mate on the ship is like this dashing troublemaker who is kind of like maybe the heir apparent, but he's always like he's a no good Nick. And so but when she gets kidnapped, she catches the first mate's eye, and so he kind of keeps making moves. But of course, he has no power, no money, no nothing. So she is not interested in the least. So meanwhile, the rulers of Gilda, who the prince was supposed to marry their daughter, they attack the ship because they hear the Dread Pirate Roberts kidnap the princess. So they go up, they attack the ship. In this big, huge battle, Inigo dies, and they capture the princess and they take her back to Gilda. So then the first mate decides, I'm going to rescue her. I'm going to prove to her like what a big deal I am. So he goes to rescue her, but fails miserably. He gets like beat to the near the point of death. He's not strong enough to go do this. So he comes up with the idea that he needs a miracle. So he goes back, finds Indigo's dead body, brings him to Miracle Max, and says, Max, you need to bring this guy back. And but I kind of see like Max, for some reason, needs this one ingredient that only the king and queen possess. So they have to go to Wesley, and then they kind of bring Wesley into it. And then they find out like, oh my gosh, this is where my daughter is. So then Wesley, the first mate, and Inigo together kind of like cobble together this rescue plan. So they go and they storm the castle, rescue the princess, bring her back, and then of course the first mate has proven his worth or something, so that they end up getting married in the end. And then I kind of rather than the whole, because I mean with Fred Savage the whole arc was that like he was kind of okay with the kissing, but I think it's more, I think for me it would be that the daughter, the Fred Savage's daughter that's being told the story, she's not at all interested in the princess until the end, because then she starts, as the story is going on, she starts actually wanting to know what happened to the princess. So she's kind of like, more engaged in the girly part, so to speak.
Yeah, no, that's interesting. I like your taming of the shrew angle here, where you're throwing this girl like total headstrong, not interested in lovey-dovey. This is all business. Like this really
is very romance novel-esque.
Yeah,
I could see you making big money.
It ends
Put
up being
Fabio
the
on the
opposite.
cover.
It sadly ends up being the opposite of Judy's, where rather than having this strong, independent female, it's more the like, it's okay to love the princess because she's girly and that's fine. So.
Yeah, no, that was fun though. All right, Kristin, what do you have for us?
Well, I have not been preparing since November, that's for sure.
Long time in the making, folks, this episode.
So I wrote down my very poignant thoughts while Adam was taking our children to the babysitter. So here we go. So in my Princess Bride sequel, it takes place pretty much immediately after the previous movie ends. And so Prince Humperdinck, who's obviously kind of a criminal, gets locked up. And so the kingdom is left without a competent ruler. And so they bring in Prince Humperdinck's distant second cousin. So he comes to take over. Laugh at me. He's laughing at my sequel already. And he's young and he's handsome, but he's also a little flamboyant. and his name is something like Julian or something like that. And so I like the idea of seeing all the characters that we know and love in kind of a new role under this new administration. And so new King Julian, he has no use for brute squads and armies and things. And he's all about love and parties and everything is wonderful. And so Miracle Max gets restored to his previous position at the palace. Humperdinck kind of hangs out in jail, and you go and visit him every once in a while, see what he's doing there. The torture tree is now like a day spa, and the albino does skin treatments and offers some chiropractic care with the machinery down there. He can stretch you out. And Wesley and Buttercup, they're married and they're happily living on their little farm. Inigo Montoya, he does become the Dread Pirate Roberts, and he's happily pirating. Since the Brute Squad got kind of dismantled, Fezzik now owns a flower shop, and there's this big giant lady who comes in, and he flirts awkwardly with her, and it's very sweet. And so it's kind of a time of peace and this idyllic happiness. The new king, he throws parties and he's kind of over the top and ridiculous, but everybody likes him. He's very fair and nice. And like I said, a little flamboyant. So the neighboring country of Gilder kind of sees that this king is kind of a wimp. They call him a pansy. And that the country is grossly underdefended now. So they decide to invade. And, there's a scene where they try to get some insider information from Prince Humperdinck in prison. And so you kind of don't know where that's going. And so the king, he doesn't know what to do. So he calls all his advisors, including Miracle Max, my favorite. And Max says, well, let's get, you got to get the old gang back together. And so, everybody comes back and they come up with this kind of grand plan, of course, using the reputation of the Dread Pirate Roberts to kind of frighten Gilder and kind of make him back off. And so the King of Gilder, he's like, oh, I don't want to go up against the Dread Pirate Roberts. That's inconceivable. So he kind of offers a truce, but the king has to marry a princess of Gilder. But King Julian, he's not real fond of girls. And so he has this great internal conflict because he does want the peace between Florin and Gilder. And so he's getting advice from everybody, and Miracle Max tells him essentially, you got to be true to yourself. You'd be dishonest if you were marrying somebody that you didn't have those love feelings for. And he's like, yeah, I know. And so he's going to tell the King of Gilder, and then he goes and he meets with him. But it turns out that the king's daughter has really been in love with none other than Prince Humperdinck for years and years. And so he agrees to let Humperdinck move to Gilder and marry this princess. And so Humperdinck is so excited. He's getting out of prison. It was an idea that he had, when he was in prison. So he maybe, planted that idea in the King of Gilder's head. But he thinks it's going to be great. He thinks he's going to be marrying the oldest hot princess who's super gorgeous and be in line for the throne. But then he shows up and he's actually marrying the young, hideous princess who doesn't have a lot going on and is not interesting or smart or awesome in any way. Very unfortunate. He's going to marry the unfortunate princess. And so the movie kind of ends with him realizing what a terrible mistake he made when he could have conceivably, perhaps, married someone as wonderful as Buttercup in the beginning, but now he's stuck with somebody who's going to be terrible. And that is the end of my story.
Wow, that was really unexpected. This is
unexpected.
The love adventures of the royal family of Florin.
There you go.
What's going on here? That was. By the way, I just have to say, did anybody else think that Prince Humperdinck also was not fond of girls? I really thought he and Christopher Guest's character, the six-fingered man, had a thing. Did nobody else ever see that?
No. There was no.
He was too jerky.
When? They never even had a moment. Or...
They did. But that whole thing where he's like, would you like to come down and see? And he's like, Tyrone, I love to watch you work, but I have my wife to kill. I have Gilder to blame. All that stuff. So like I don't know. I felt like that was their moment to say like, hey, we usually have a thing together that we do. We watch torture together, and that I don't know. I was reading into it too much, I guess.
I think you.
I don't know.
Yeah. So anyway, mine is more like of a coming of age and understanding.
Yeah, no, that was really interesting though. I don't know why it made me laugh that he's like his distant second cousin. I don't know why that's funny to me, but like distant relations of royalty. But no, I lots of unexpected turns there, so it was fun. All right. Well, looks like I am up. This is really interesting because I feel like I kind of have some elements of Jeff and Judy's pitches in mind to a certain extent, especially Judy's. And I promise we did not trade notes here, but it's kind of gender swapped, and you're going to see some other influences here. So allow me to share with you my thoughts. I'm calling mine The Princess Bride 2, or just like The Pirate Bride, is essentially what I've named mine. But it says, after the events of the first film, Wesley and Buttercup sailed away in the Dread Pirate Roberts ship, taking Inigo on as a crewmate. Fezzik did not come with them, as it is explained he found a village of large women with whom he will have many large children. And a year after setting sail, the couple give birth to a boy named Christian. They decide to settle down on a Caribbean island, giving the mantle of the Dread Pirate Roberts to Inigo. We see that Uncle Inigo visits the family every year, bringing Christian exotic gifts from his travels and challenges him to playful swordplay. Also during this time, Inigo himself marries an adventurous woman named Lucinda, with whom he has a daughter named Luz. Christian watches over the years as Luz becomes a beautiful young woman and secretly pines for her. Now approaching the age of 18, Christian dreams of a life beyond the island. Wesley and Buttercup try to make him realize the joy of their peaceful life and that adventure isn't all it's cracked up to be. But the rebellious youth wants more. He begins building a raft, which Wesley forbids him to use and dismantles, fearing for Christian's safety. And during a visit from Inigo's family, Luz and Christian share a heartfelt moment on a cliff at sunset where Christian explains his desire to see the world, while Luz declares she's had enough of the world and wishes she could just stay in one place forever. Christian begs her to, quote, "Stay forever with me." And they profess their love for each other in a tender kiss. Their moment is interrupted by a slightly older man named Kyle, who boasts that he is being trained as the new Dread Pirate Roberts and that Luz will be his bride. Kyle goes on to say that Luz is too good for him and that Christian couldn't possibly give her the riches of the world like he's planning to do. Besides, Christian's just an island monkey boy. And the two suitors have a scuffle and Christian is humiliated. And Inigo shows up to save Christian, chastises Kyle, sends him back to the ship, then gifts Christian a sword, saying, "All a man needs is the love of a woman, and a blade with which to defend her." Luz reaffirms her love for Christian. The two kiss and exchange intertwining heart charms for necklaces they agree to wear as a symbol of their love. Now, the next morning, Christian finds that Luz and her family have left in the night, and he's heartbroken and sends a love note to her through his trained bird, Misha. And a day later, Misha returns with a blackened shard of wood with the words, "Save us," cut into it. Fearing that his love is in danger, Christian launches the raft, which he has secretly rebuilt, and sets off to find the ship of the Dread Pirate Roberts. After a few days on the ocean, Christian comes upon the charred wreckage of a ship and finds Inigo tied to a floating piece of the mast, cursing and crying. When asked what happened, Inigo tells Christian that Kyle got impatient with his training and betrayed him by joining forces with another pirate named Don Fuego, who attacked their ship, murdered Lucinda, and kidnapped Luz. Going mad with grief at the loss of his wife, Inigo swears revenge on Don Fuego and begs Christian to help him save Luz and avenge his wife's murder. Christian and Inigo build a makeshift boat out of the wreckage and set sail, while Inigo prays to Lucinda to guide his sword and sail to the ship of Don Fuego. Meanwhile, Luz is forcibly wined and dined by Kyle on board the ship as he guides Don Fuego to the hidden treasure deposits of the Dread Pirate Roberts. Luz continually rejects Kyle, blaming him for the murder of her parents, who she believes are both dead. but on the advice of Don Fuego about being a man that puts a woman in her place. Kyle tries to force Luz to love him by imprisoning her and starving her, saying, "When your heart aches for me the way your belly aches for food, I'll free you." Inigo and Kristin are visited by mermaids who agree to help guide them to Don Fuego if they can answer 3 riddles. Will the pair only get 2 of the 3 correct? One of the mermaids, Lila, who has eyes for Kristin, agrees to help any way she can and gets a whale to carry their raft to the desired destination. Traveling along with them, Lila flirts with Kristin along the way, trying to win his affections. On the boat, a crew member named Philip, I know I have a lot of new characters here, who was loyal to Inigo as Dread Pirate Roberts, but feared for his life in the siege, sneaks food to Luz. He is caught by Kyle, beaten, and sentenced to a week in a net hanging from the mast. Meanwhile, Kristin sends out Misha the bird to find Luz and deliver her a note that says they're coming to rescue her. Luz sends back her necklace to confirm that she is still alive. Lila the mermaid becomes incredibly jealous at the gesture, steals the necklace, and leaves them abandoned. But with the enemy ship visible and only a few miles off, they see it anchored in a nearby island that Inigo recognizes as the site of the treasure. Fueled purely by passion, the pair take off swimming towards the boat and eventually find their way on board while the crew are busy pillaging the treasure hoard. They free Luz but are spotted by Kyle, who attacks. Inigo outmaneuvers his former apprentice, just barely incapacitating one of his arms and cutting off an ear. Then Don Fuego shows up to take on Inigo and kills the weakened warrior. In a rage, Kristin attacks Don Fuego, but is easily overpowered, and he is nonchalantly handed off to Kyle to be finished. While supervising the treasure loading, Don Fuego turns his attention away from them. Just as the disfigured Kyle has Kristin over the bow and ready to kill, Lila the mermaid leaps from the water and drags Kyle into the depths below. Kristin then picks up Inigo's sword, prays for his power, and catching Don Fuego off guard, defeats the pirate, banishing him to the island. On his way off the boat, Don Fuego steals a sword from a crewman and tries to stab Kristin in the back, but is stabbed himself by a dagger from Philip and then falls overboard dead. Luz and Kristin return to Wesley and Buttercup's island in Don Fuego's ship, but before going ashore, Lila returns the necklace and wishes them well. They hold a funeral for Inigo and Lucinda, then discussion of where they go from there begins. Kristin decides that he would rather live forever with Luz than risk losing her in a world of adventure. Philip is made the new Dread Pirate Roberts and sails the ship away as Luz and Kristin kiss on a clifftop at sunset.
Wow, you had like a little Harry Potter in there. A bird delivering the messages. That's nice.
Now wait, who was Don Fuego again? I missed him.
Don Fuego is he's another like rival pirate, and Kyle, who was the first mate being trained as the new Dread Pirate Robert someday, had basically teamed up with him. So
teamed up with Don Fuego.
Fuego.
So Don Fuego is like some sort of Spanish rapscallion?
So some Spanish tyrant of the waves, yes. Obviously, I'm trying to capitalize here on some Pirates of the Caribbean. Those kids love their...
Right, with mermaids and whales and whatnot.
Also a little more fantasy.
Pet birds, yeah.
But when I heard Judy's pitch, I was like, oh, so like really it's kind of like just gender swapped idea here of that child that wants, something different than what they have. Yeah. But yeah, so obviously, we have quite a few themes going on here and running throughout. We have like the complete return, bringing everybody back, like in Kristin's pitch, but then making the focus on a totally new character for the most part, which is interesting. Kind of with mine too, just basically a whole cast of new characters and just one or two of the diehards or the old stalwart characters.
I mean, mine is really more, it's not necessarily about new King Julian. I mean, it kind of is, but it's the way all the other characters that you've already met influence him and help him to do the right thing.
Yeah.
Right. Well, and I mean, also just like you said, that it picks up right where the last one left off, as opposed
basically.
to these have, extended differences. Well, and it kind of seems like with yours, Adam, is that yours is basically following the Dread Pirate Roberts. It's kind of the Dread Pirate Roberts story, which Which, yeah, I mean, a sequel can definitely go in that direction, where it felt like the other ones maybe followed Wesley and Buttercup a little bit more. So I think that would be the first in mashed in all together.
Yeah, well, so that was the question, because my thought initially, it sounds like that's where you guys are all on. I just felt like their story's done. They had their great love and everything. So now you take it. Who's the next person that gets to have that? You know. But for example, like I love, because I understand mine's probably off the table here, a little too far out there. But I love that all of you incorporated that. So question is it a son or a daughter? Because I think Jeff and Judy, you guys both did a daughter, right? So for this next generation, it's kind of taking over.
Well, and that's where I feel like if it's going to be a sequel, a sequel to The Princess Bride, I think that it should be, especially if it's going to be like, if we are going to do the meta thing where it's someone reading a story to somebody else, is that, yeah, it's really hard to tell like a fairy tale about a boy. It just doesn't, it's just, there's something a little bit different. But I do like, I don't know. I like the one way or the other, putting the female, whether the female is the main or the secondary, putting them in a position of action happening, like being forced into action, as opposed to, like Judy said, just having action forced upon them. That could give it a different spin than the first one.
Okay. Yeah.
Well, and even like
agree.
Jeff, you had the father reading to his daughter. So I think if you have the female character and you have the daughter hearing the story, like that'd be a lot of great commentary as well. Like whether it's a tomboy or not, like you would still get some, like that different female perspective. So I like, and that brings it back to the original as well, of like reading a story.
Well, and because that was the thing too that I was thinking about, because then it's so strange in doing something like that where you have to still play to your audience, even though they're playing like you've got two audiences essentially. You've got the audience in the story, and then you've got the actual audience, and so it's like, what, again, if you had a stereotypical girl that this is being read to, what if instead of being bored by the kissing scenes, she's bored by the sword fighting? Oh, sword fighting? Can we skip this part? Like, I don't think the audience, us as the audience, might appreciate that, but it would definitely be a different spin to kind of do it that way.
Yeah, so I definitely like your framework, Jeff. I think we definitely need that, just to tie it in, like you're saying, the father reading to the daughter. So the other question that I have then is, so are we going to take it where we want her to really get something out of it, or because like you said, Fred Savage's basic idea was just, okay, I could deal with the kissing, I'm fine. In her case, in your pitch, Jeff, you were saying, oh well, by the end of it, she kind of thinks it's okay to root for the princess, which again, I think that works, unless anybody has a different thought. But then we take it to say, okay, now within the story, what is the arc of this princess? Which one are we kind of going with? Is she the one that, like you were saying, Jeff, that isn't interested in marriage but is more business minded and combining the two countries, or is she more? What if we flip it around?
Mm-hmm. What if we flip it around from that entirely, and because these days, as we know from working for Disney, all the craze seems to be about the princesses. So what if it's like going along with, I think that was the name of yours, Adam, was the Pirate Bride or something?
Yeah.
But so what if it instead of it being the tomboy who needs to be okay with being girly, what if it's the other way around? If it's the one that she only wants to hear the princess and the blah, 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 and it's just like, well, this is a story about a pirate. Pirates? I don't know.
Yeah, kind of like that. Like, because it'd be like, oh, pirates are boys, and I want a princess, and she has to have magical powers or whatever. And then she can realize maybe that it's like, oh, well, this princess has powers. Like, she kicks butt. Like, and then you learn how cool that is.
Are we making the princess? Are we making the princess the idea that, this character, this daughter, is she somebody who longs for adventure? or again, is she the person who is more, just like kind of already, I don't know, already sees where she wants to kind of take her life. She doesn't feel repressed. She doesn't, she is in control, kind of like Jeff did.
Right.
What do we like?
And that's where I kind of feel like, again, if we are going to, and that was always the weird thing about Buttercup, is that Buttercup wasn't actually a princess. She was going to be if she did get married to the prince, but up until that point, she didn't. So she wasn't actually a princess, but there was still that potential she was going to be a princess and a bride. So it's kind of like in this one, if she is the daughter of Inigo, then there's no princess unless there's that like she has the opportunity to become a princess and she doesn't want it or something like that. There's got to be some princess here or else it just makes no sense.
Okay. What do you think, Judy? Where do you kind of see us taking that then? Should she be this daughter of Wesley and Buttercup, or is she the daughter of Inigo?
Well, I kind of liked, how Adam, you had it where she was kind of like trained from birth, like your daughter of Inigo, and she had kind of seen everything, done everything. She would kind of, already be a pirate. But I also liked in, whose story was that? Well, whoever had that Buttercup inherits the kingdom just because, so then they could have a son, maybe, who would be the prince. So it'd kind of be that situation again.
So Wesley and Buttercup become royalty. We could set that up.
I just had the thought, what if we use Kristin's as the backstory? What if she's actually Humperdinck's daughter, and that Humperdinck does get married to the ugliest woman in the kingdom as his punishment, and this is their daughter who doesn't want to follow in Dad's footsteps. She wants to be a pirate.
Oh, that's good.
Okay. And then so
cool.
so would the love interest be Inigo's son then? He's the one who's being trained to be the new Dread Pirate Roberts, and they meet up somehow. Like she is the princess who escapes, and like in Judy, she hides on the pirate ship and she goes out with them.
I could see,
yeah.
Or it could be Wesley and Buttercup's son, and then because of Wesley's background, like, or maybe she's not interested in because she wants to be a pirate, kind of like Judy. I feel like Judy, that was your thing, right? Where
so do we want to say Wesley and Buttercup then they continued on the pirate lifestyle? Is that what happened then? And then they had a son, so that the Dread Pirate Roberts is still a part of this narrative for them. It's their life. Is that kind of what you're thinking, Jeff?
Well, at least for me, I was more thinking that idea that, like, I don't see Inigo getting married. Like, that just doesn't, as the Dread Pirate Roberts, like, you don't really have time for a woman other than a pirate woman, I guess. Or, I mean, which I guess was how you had it. And I mean, well, I don't know. I guess for me, at least in my mind, I can see one of two directions. I either see I see Inigo as the Dread Pirate Roberts, because I feel like that's where they left that, because Wesley kind of gave up on piracy. Is that to have, like, it's their son that she either is infatuated with, or maybe he's infatuated with her, but she wants to go off to become a pirate, and maybe, like, he uses that, like, well, my dad knows a guy, and, like, I can get you to become a, like, that's his in.
So and it could be the same thing where, that son, if he's Christian or whatever his name is, he also is longing for adventure because they live this provincial farm life, and so it's that same conflict that he was having in my story. So she is essentially royalty that wants to get out. He's a farm boy that wants to get out, and then they know the Dread Pirate Roberts.
And then you have Aladdin.
Yeah, exactly. I know. That's what I was just thinking. I was like, this is total.
Or Beauty and the Beast. I mean, provincial life.
I know that.
Any Disney reference.
But I think that would work really well. So then, and like we say, like, Inigo comes regularly to visit, so he knows, he's going to be here in a week. And now that Kristin has met the princess and he's all into her, and that, they have whatever their meet cute is, and then he convinces her, hey, we could do this. And obviously Prince, now I guess King Humperdinck, is not going to be happy about it, because why is his daughter with, the son of his enemy?
That's true.
Yeah, exactly. Well, what if instead, like, adding an extra, like, what if, like, Christian or whatever Wesley and Buttercup's son is, what if, like, he's not really that into being a pirate, but it's more just because, like, again, this is an in for him for the and so then he does follow her in, like, to be a pirate, but he's just, like, horrible at it. And I could add just, like, his
and what we could do is what he wants to be is, like was said, he does want to be a wizard. He wants to be so he goes to Miracle Max all the time. So that's his real thing. So he gets to use
okay. But I guess that's
that's a little too Santa Claus is coming to town, or no, Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer, right? Yeah, but no, I think that's awesome because then he has, like, his illusionary powers or his mystical powers that he could use at some point. He sucks at sword fighting and all these other things, but he can use his magic, to save the day at a certain point. That'd be a lot of fun. Okay, so and then but like I said, then Humperdinck, I see him being kind of the antagonist, or I mean, do we have something where, like, is Don Fuego in this? Like, because if they take off, to become pirates, what are they doing while they're out on the ocean? So they have rival Don Fuego coming in and attacking, and that could be pretty fun.
Or we could even do, like, Don Fuego is trying to, like, seduce Humperdinck's daughter or something like that.
Yeah, no, I'm sure. Yeah, like he could come to try to take over the ship and then seize her, and he's like, like, give me your daughter, I will spare your lives. And then
well, yeah, then you're kind of combining, like, Adam's Don Fuego character with his Kyle character. So I think that works if he's kind of, like, a little creeping on the maybe slightly younger girl, but he's also trying to, like, take over the pirate industry or whatever. So then you have a lot of reasons to hate him, because it's good to have a nice unlikable.
Yeah, and then Humperdinck sends out the navy of Florin at some point, to
Gilder.
Oh, Gilder. Sorry about that. No,
and
Gilder was who they were. That's
another cameo. That I guess it's a little more than a cameo, but their head of the guard with the giant sideburns. He is so, like,
he's so
subtle, but I like his.
He is hilarious.
This king.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, he's just.
Jeff, can I just say, when I see that guy, he for some reason he looks like a relative of yours to me. I'm like, he could be like your uncle, not that he looks like you, but he kind of looks like a combination of your dad and your sister to me. Like, he could be.
They have red hair.
Yeah.
None of them have facial hair.
Well,
especially not my sister. But
shout out to Kelly. Hi, Kelly. Anyway.
And we've just lost one more listener.
But no, I like this. So I think, I like how we've kind of put it together here, where it's we have enough of the old, but we have some of the new, and obviously we do a little bit of the here and there, the follow up with the existing characters. Like we say, Fezzik, definitely got his large woman and had his.
We do need to definitely throw, like, some sort of a shout out, because Andre the Giant. I mean that's a big.
Yeah, you have to mention him, but obviously he couldn't be in it,
Which, just to kind of as food for thought or fun fact or whatever, is that the cool thing that, if you've ever seen, there's an A&E documentary on Andre the Giant, which is absolutely fascinating. Mm-hmm. But the amazing thing that everybody said is that the Fezzik in Princess Bride, like, that was Andre the Giant. That was actually how he was just kind of being himself. Like, he was that. Even though he was 7'6" and 450 pounds, he was just, like, the nicest, kindest, like, the gentle giant. And he was so witty, just like Fezzik is always making up these rhymes. Anybody want a peanut? That was Andre. He was that kind of a guy.
Well, that's great. And by the way, I'm just going to throw this out there, random movie trivia, but Billy Crystal was in a film several years later in the 90s called My Giant. Oh, no. If Andre the Giant had lived, he could have been in that movie with Billy Crystal. We could have had a reuniting of the Princess Bride cast. It would have been awesome. Okay, well, I think we pretty much have a story together here that satisfies everyone. But let's talk about casting a little bit here. So who are we kind of looking at with, like, when we talk about, first off, the son of Buttercup and Wesley then? So who is playing this Christian character? Who's a young up-and-coming actor that you feel's got the charm?
Asa Butterfield.
Who?
What's his name? Spider-Man.
Oh, the new Spider-Man kid?
Oh.
Asa.
Too young?
Well, I don't know.
He's the young one these
Andrew
days.
Garfield?
Too old?
Oh,
No, but he
okay.
plays young.
I
Yeah.
can see him wizardy,
Yeah, he actually could. That's
lanky, and
Harry Potter
especially
style.
if he has that goofy long hair that he has that he gets made fun of on Jimmy Fallon or no Jimmy Kimmel.
Yeah, no, I like Andrew Garfield for that. I think he's got that charm. Kristen, why are you not on board for? I'm getting facial reaction here. Tell us your thoughts on Andrew Garfield.
I don't know who that is.
He was Spider-Man in the latest Spider-Man.
He's the
movies.
other Spider-Man.
You say that like I should know who that is.
We went to go see them together. It's okay. It's okay, dear.
I don't remember. I don't remember.
Who's on your mind? Zac Efron?
No.
No, but
Yeah, he's too. Especially in this last movie, he's way too buff these days.
Yeah. No, but I think Andrew Garfield works because again, yeah, he's not dashing, but he's charming and he's lovable, so I think that works. And then if we're talking,
the other one, although he might have the capability of stealing the show, would be Michael Cera. He would be my other.
Michael Cera, no. He's not hunky enough.
No?
He's not close enough to being attractive. I don't
Does
think.
he need to be hunky?
Yeah.
Judy's
shouldn't
right.
Be, I don't know, awkward.
Well, especially
That
with like
awkward.
two
Not that
gorgeous
awkward?
parents,
Oh, well.
right?
Right.
It just seems likely that you would have a beautiful child.
You'd have an Andrew Garfield.
Now, what
Yeah.
about the daughter here? So we're talking about the princess. Who could play that here? Who's one of those fantastic actresses?
Michelle Rodriguez. Come on.
She's like 40.
Someday we'll get her a role.
Jeff's always gunning for Michelle
Oh,
Rodriguez. Let's see. Like I'm trying to think because we don't want to go too young. We're definitely not looking for Disney Channel style princess. Like
No.
she could be,
Are we talking like Mila Kunis or?
yes, maybe closer to that.
Maybe like a Jennifer Lawrence. I know Adam's not a fan.
Well, we just try to shy away from people who have every role. Like Channing Tatum, we pretty much
Exactly.
never cast him. We're just like,
Which is a
True.
shame.
He's got
He
enough
is
work.
everything.
you guys. So
What a shame.
Yeah,
No
just-
Channing
Although
Tatum in
I
this
do have to
movie.
admit, Jennifer
Ugh.
Lawrence, if we're talking about the princess who doesn't want to be a princess,
Wouldn't she be
Jennifer
perfect?
Lawrence does kind of fit that bill.
Yeah.
okay, well,
Plus, I know who she is.
That's true.
That's always a plus.
that could be an interesting mashup, though. I like.
Oh, well, I had two thoughts because I don't know if you guys would know her, but an actress called Tatiana Maslany.
Oh, from Orphan Black, right?
She's on a show called Orphan Black where she plays like 8 different clones. So she does action, comedy, like everything. So she could do it. Or I was thinking of that girl whose name I can't remember from Sucker Punch. You know, the girl from Sucker Punch.
the
and
main girl?
she was in Lemony Snicket.
Are you talking about Baby
Emily
Doll?
Browning.
The main
Emily
one?
Browning.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, the girl who played Baby Doll. I didn't see it, but yeah,
I mean,
Emily Browning.
she wasn't
So-
given much acting to do in that film, so I don't know what her capabilities are. But I mean, she's certainly like an attractive woman, so she could play young. So I mean, that could work. But I think I would probably lean towards this Orphan Black actress if you're saying she has that kind of range, because it's definitely going to be the tone of the film.
She's kind of on the older side, isn't she? She's kind of like early 30s maybe.
But that's what I'm saying. Andrew Garfield is too.
Yeah, but
Is he?
he looks like he's 12 if it's that kid that played
He
Spider-Man.
does. I mean, he plays a high schooler in Spider-Man.
Wait. What
I guess-
if we just bring Emma Stone in for this? Can't we just reunite them? They have so much chemistry. Emma Stone, Andrew Garfield, back at it. No?
She's a
I
little
don't see her.
wussy.
Right. I
Don't
don't
you
Wussy?
think,
I
Emma
don't know.
Stone?
I don't think so.
Princess
I think
wants
she's
to
got
be-
a
I
lot of
don't see it.
chutzpah. I'm channeling.
Could you define that?
She's a shiksa. No, I'm trying to
Could you
channel
define that also?
Miracle
You're
Max.
just using random.
Yeah, she doesn't have a princessy vibe.
Really?
No, she doesn't.
Right.
Okay. She's blue collar.
Oh, what was well now she's too old. Wait, was Jennifer Garner Alias? Who
Yeah.
was Alias?
Yeah. Jennifer Garner?
Yeah,
Now
Jennifer
she's too
Garner.
old.
Way too old.
Well, she's like 50.
Yeah.
Isn't she 50?
Is she really?
Well, she's not that old, but she's
She's
probably
pretty
40
old.
something. Yeah.
She's pretty
She
old.
She's in her
21 on
40s.
something or whatever.
Yeah.
Wasn't that her movie?
I don't know. I mean, I don't know her work, but I like the idea of this Tatiana Maslany actress.
Sure. I mean, she's incredibly versatile, so I would
Yeah.
see, yeah. I mean, and that's the thing too. It's hard to tell from that show how old she plays because she plays so many different characters.
Yeah,
So it's
see?
like one's a punk and one's a Russian and one's a British and one's a soccer mom, and so she could.
Well,
be
I just
16.
looked it up. She's 30 years old.
Oh, see, so she
well,
could do
all right.
it. Yeah, that's not a big deal.
Sure, because 30's like 18 in Hollywood.
These days, yeah. No, so
Well, sometimes.
can we agree on this actress? And we'll just take Judy's recommendation. We think she's got it. Okay. Now, next up, I
Yay.
guess, is Don Fuego. So who's going to play Don Fuego and be kind of creepy? But I imagine he's going to be,
I can picture somebody in my mind, but they might be too old. Actually, they can be. Oh no, Don Fuego. Oh, but he's not Spanish. Oh,
What?
Because we got into a kick this last week on. Oh gosh, and now his name is gone. On Skeletor.
Frank Langella?
Yes, Frank Langella. He could reprise
Oh, wow.
his
He's
role
old.
from Cutthroat Island.
He's
But that's the
played
thing
a
about Don
pirate
Fuego.
before.
Don Fuego can be any age, and
It's
the older
true,
he
yeah.
is, the creepier he is. And
But I mean, could he
but he's, like,
buff out
80.
like he did before? Like, I don't know. Does he have it
Well,
in him again?
I don't. It was a long time ago.
I'm trying to think of a guy.
What
who's,
about going into left field? What about
Channing Tatum?
Rob Lowe?
Oh, sorry.
wishful thinking,
Rob
dear?
Lowe. Well,
Rob Lowe?
Now it's silly though. Like it's intentionally silly if you put Rob Lowe.
But
in there,
isn't
I
the
think.
movie intentionally silly? Ultimately, like the
No,
Princess
I don't
Bride.
think it is.
It's a spoof.
Yeah.
No, I don't think it's a spoof. I think it's different than a spoof. It's because everybody in it takes it seriously. Like Billy Crystal is 100% Miracle Max. He's not a spoof of Miracle Max. He's not making fun of Miracle. Like that is how Miracle Max would behave. And that's where for Rob Lowe, it'd be kind of like what was his, like when Tom Cruise was in Tropic Thunder, where it's kind of like, oh, it's Tom Cruise. We're supposed to think this is ridiculous.
I don't think so, though. I don't think Rob Lowe is not the
Yeah.
megastar that has a definite persona. I feel like so recently, because of all his comedic work, like he's kind of showed us that it's like, okay, you know what? Because I think he has like 2 shows coming out right now that are on TV, that are, or he's got one he's already doing, I think it's called The Grinder, and then he's got this other one, like Friends at the End, or not Friends at the End of the World, but like You, Me, and the Apocalypse. He's in that, like,
Right.
and Parks and Recreation. So I don't know. I actually think Rob Lowe's a good suggestion because I feel like, again, because if you want to even believe that the princess might be tempted at all, he is a good-looking older man. So it would kind of give a little bit where the Christian character could feel threatened. He's like, oh, look at this guy, And him not being Spanish, Jeff, could actually be the joke. So he comes in as Don Fuego, but he has no
And again,
accent.
that doesn't seem like a Princess Bride joke though to me.
Really?
Where
Okay,
I
well,
don't
but
know,
it is
where it didn't seem like
updated.
that. Yeah, like you said, the casting was so perfect in the first one. There wasn't any of them where you're just like, come on, Andre the Giant isn't actually that strong. No, you fully thought he was that strong.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Who else do you got? But
Well, what about
Yeah.
Alfred Molina?
Ah. He's always good. Dr. Octopus from Spider-Man, dear. Any recollection?
Oh yeah. Oh, that's kind of.
Yeah. And the bad guy
Chocolat.
from
Did you see
Maverick
Chocolat?
And
He was the mayor.
the skewered guy from Indiana Jones.
Yeah, from Raiders of the Lost Ark.
I would always get behind Alfred Molina.
There you go.
Although he would definitely get the creep vibe going.
Yeah, no, and he always gives
Ugh.
great performances in that way. Yeah.
Always a creeper.
Ooh, what about if we? I guess he's not younger, but Antonio Banderas.
Oh, actually,
Oh.
yeah.
That would be good.
It's been a while
sad.
since we've seen him in anything but Spy Kids, right? So bring him
That's true.
back. Oh, actually, that's really good casting. I feel
think-
like.
Yeah, I think Antonio Banderas but playing more or less like his Puss in Boots character.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
It's like,
Yep.
that's it right there.
Oh yeah, he's 55. I just Googled it.
Yeah, so he could do it.
There you go.
Good. Okay. Now, is there anybody else that feel like we're missing? I think those are really the only 3 new characters, unless we're talking
The
about
one that I was going
the
to throw out
queen.
for you, Adam,
Yeah.
was the mom, Humperdinck's hideous wife.
Yeah.
Which is sad to call her hideous, but you always used to throw her name out there, Rebel Wilson.
Oh, Rebel Wilson.
give her a
But
shout
she's
out.
so young. That's different. But I guess that could be the point that he had to marry.
That is the point. That
Well, it
she's,
is that
but
she was
she
supposed to
kind
be
of
young.
plays the like.
Yeah.
She can definitely play the like. I don't know.
But I mean, we could old her up. Like we could definitely make her look older. Because all I'm saying is, if she's gonna have an 18-year-old daughter, a 30-year-old playing an
that's
18-year-old daughter, is it feasible that would work?
Well, last week we demusclified Terry Crews, so I think we can age up. We can age up Rebel Wilson.
That's true. Actually,
Well, not that she's hideous,
No,
but she
no,
loves to play the ugly character.
Exactly.
But Melissa McCarthy,
That was the same thing too.
okay.
Ooh, I love
I'm
her.
just gonna put her in everything.
Right. The tough
too.
thing about that one that I was thinking is I feel like this is almost too small a role for her. Because she's literally going to be in like the first 10 minutes of the movie and then maybe the end. They would make cameos as the
Well,
bad
it's like
guys.
the cameo thing.
Yeah. Well, maybe.
I mean, because she's a big enough star that if she made a cameo now, people would be like, "Oh, Melissa McCarthy was so funny as the queen," and then that would be it, But like they'll remember
That's
her being in it. So I think that works because again, yeah,
Billy Crystal was a pretty big star to make a cameo.
yeah,
so I guess
exactly.
Yeah.
it's doable.
That's good. No, that's good casting. I feel. All right.
I also want to see some famous people do cameos as mermaids, because actually, like, no, I think that makes sense because the first movie had the ROUSs, it had shrieking eels.
Yeah.
So I'm like, yeah, mermaids. There's mermaids in this world, like, obviously.
Yeah,
So
at some point. So now would we? I mean, I don't know. I don't know if we want to
That
go
could
like
be the
with
conflict with Don Fuego. That's how the conflict with Don Fuego ends. The mermaids come to the rescue.
they save
Yeah.
the day. Okay. Because we could
Or
still
maybe
have that
maybe
split.
like they seduce him or something.
ooh.
I just Googled Rebel
They
Wilson, and I'm pretty excited about it.
You want Rebel Wilson over Melissa McCarthy?
Well, Melissa McCarthy
That'd
is
be
so
awesome.
cute.
Rebel Wilson's a little crazier looking.
She is.
Oh,
But you're right, age-wise, that's definitely.
yeah, Melissa McCarthy makes more sense. So,
Yeah.
all right, but yeah, so mermaids. Who do you want to cast as a group of mermaids, or your favorite female comedians or just celebrities you want to throw in there?
We can't have any mermans.
You could have some mermen.
Channing Tatum.
Sure. Although not. Oh, Channing.
The Kardashians as mermaids.
Oh, that would be kind of funny. I'd like
Yeah.
that.
But that would take you totally out. To Jeff's point, like that to
Right.
me, like pulls you out of the world. That doesn't work at all.
Right. It was the same thing. Like I was thinking to do like to have like I don't know, like a not a reunion, but to have like the like Salt and Pepper or whatever, or to have like
Well, like,
what
to
was
me-
the name that Beyonce was in?
Yeah, that was my
TLC.
first thought. I was like, Destiny's Child pops out of the water,
Child.
or TLC sings their "Don't Go Chasing Waterfalls" song.
So
like
there's
they did in the video.
sirens.
But then that's
Not
also
mermaids.
very
Yeah, sirens.
That's
yeah.
also very taking you out of the
Yeah,
story.
that's what I'm saying. Like musical artists, we really don't want in there. We need actual actors or comedians that can play a role.
Well, if you want like a fun, if you want a fun duo, then Amy Poehler, Tina Fey
Boom.
popping out of the water.
Yep.
As mermaids. That would be funny because they're not like traditionally beautiful. So like it would just be
Right.
great
And so
to
them
see them. Yeah.
seducing. Yeah.
That would be pretty funny. All right. Well, that's good. Yeah, we'll drop them in there. So, all right. Now, as far as like, do we want to call the movie The Pirate Bride then? Is that kind of what we like?
Well, except for it's not. Well, I don't know because
Like the Princess Pirate.
yeah, but then that sounds kind of clunky to me.
dumb.
Yeah, it just doesn't
But
fit.
I do agree that like princess, I think it depends. Again, if we're going, because usually it seems like little girls that would be hearing this story, if they're going to be around Fred Savage's age in the first one. So she was what? He was like 6, 7, something like that, maybe 8. Most of those 7, 8-year-old girls don't seem to be that fascinated by brides. I mean, maybe a little, but not as much about princesses. And so that's where, if you had a princess, but I mean, the pirate princess sound, maybe.
I think it works.
My original thought
pirate.
was,
It has to be.
my original thought was
No.
just as a sequel to the Princess Bride, you should do the Queen Mother, but then it would have to be about the mother. So.
That's weird.
Yeah, that's totally different episode. We gotta go in a different direction with that. So pirate princess or princess pirate? Kristin thinks princess pirate.
Yeah, I think of those two, that sounds smoother.
Okay.
Well, and I think little girls would like it better.
It's easier to market.
Because it's a princess pirate.
Yeah. Spin-off cartoon on the Disney Channel.
Yeah, for sure.
So, and then as far as like poster art, do you guys have a vision in your mind as to how you sell this to that audience or to the because it's like you want to make people know that it is the Princess Bride, but I don't think the Princess Bride has iconic poster art or imagery that people think of. So it's like, how do you communicate that it's
like
related?
Moments. What if, I mean, again, especially if we're doing the meta thing, what if the main poster was like a book cover? And, I'm kind of almost I don't remember exactly what the book in the movie looked like, but I'm kind of picturing like the book in Neverending Story without the little symbol on it.
It was just kind of your standard leather-bound fairy tale book.
Yeah, it's like a really nice looking book, but it's a book and it's,
So it would just have a blurb that
Bride.
says from the creators of the Princess Bride or whatever, for the people who brought you the Princess Bride, so everybody knows.
The story continues. So you'd have to say that on
or
there.
even, the book itself could say, from the author that wrote The Princess Bride.
So we have to
use
get
that
William
WB
Goldman back to rewrite it or to give us a new take. Now, my other thought on this is, what if, this is just what's popping into my head, but what if there was a ship that's like a pirate ship, but then the book is like in the middle of it that's kind of like taking the place of the mast and the sails. So it's like a ship that's on the sea, but then you have the book sitting in the middle of it. That it's not, it would in this case be a giant book on a pirate ship, but no.
I don't know if I'm behind that.
So just the book cover.
Do you remember the Page Master?
Yes.
That seems to remind me of the Page Master.
Macaulay
I'm not sure we
Culkin.
want to go that direction.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because it was the same thing. I mean, you could have a book that is opened and out of the book comes these things, but then that, again, Page Master.
Yeah. And then
I think you should have, there's that iconic kissing scene that you had on your wall. I mean, even up until the point when we got married.
That's from Xanadu, dear. That's not from the
didn't you have
Princess
another
Bride.
one from the Princess Bride?
No.
Apparently they look apparently they look the same.
It was a kiss at
sunset.
Yeah.
So anyway, in the Princess Bride, there's that same idea, that
That's
kiss
true.
at sunset. Put the kiss
the
in the
DVD
sunset
cover?
Well, that's
on the
what I'm
boat.
saying. That is the closest thing that they have to something iconic with some of the the
Put it
home
on a
video
boat.
stuff.
Bam.
Okay.
Ooh, you do the same one, but instead of them, I mean, it'd be misleading, but instead of them kissing, it's Melissa McCarthy and Prince Humperdinck.
Yeah.
What? But it's in silhouette, so
love
how
that.
would you know?
Exactly. But you would tell. I mean, you can kind of tell. Humperdinck has a very distinctive with his crown and that silly little half cape he wore.
I don't know if that has anything to do with what we're talking about, though.
It doesn't. But it
doesn't,
doesn't
but I
matter.
love
mean,
it.
the kiss didn't really have a whole lot to do with the story either.
But that was an
just
iconic
the
scene
beginning
from
and
the
end.
film. But although it could be a funny moment where Humperdinck has to kiss her, and it's the whole resisting, like, oh, and so that they're referencing that eventually. But okay, now score-wise, obviously the movie didn't had a nice score. Do you know who did the score? Does anybody know that?
Yes. From Dire Straits.
Yeah, Mark Knopfler. Yeah.
Oh.
So I think we just bring him back because he did good work. So just let him, money for nothing
Is he
and your
still
score
around?
for free. Maybe he'd just do it because he's excited to be a part of it. Is he still alive? I think so.
I didn't know if he was doing stuff anymore.
Oh,
Do you want me to? Would you like me to Google
consult
it?
Yeah, we'll find his people. We'll get a hold of
Yeah,
him.
he's doing stuff.
All right.
I just looking him up.
Yeah. So, but yeah, I think that would be a good way to go. And then, but I do think like in the closing credits, you need a song by Josh Groban. So some type of very,
Does feel Josh
romantic,
Groban. Or what's,
classic type of song.
Yeah, no, Josh Groban.
He fits
What's
that
the other
world.
guy? What's Sam Smith? What does he do? Is that more jazz?
That's more like R&B a bit.
Oh, is it? Oh,
That wouldn't really fit.
I don't know. He just has a name.
Oh, well, look for it.
He just did the Spectre song.
Oh, really? Wait, Mark Knopfler or Sam Smith?
Oh, I was saying
Sam
Okay. But yeah, so The Pirate Princess coming to a theater near you.
The Princess Pirate.
Princess Pirate.
Get it right.
Everybody's going to mix it up. We'll have to do a big campaign. Get it right.
I don't think so.
It's Princess Pirate.
And you can show her, in her princess dress with a sword. It'll be great.
That'll be awesome.
Princess Pirate. No one will.
Which also was the cover of Cutthroat Island, I would like to point out. So
Another movie I haven't seen.
Not a Gina Davis fan, dear?
You should keep it that way. Yeah.
Yes. Oh. I spent my youth reading books.
All right. Well, with that, we want to thank everybody for being with us this episode, especially to Kristin and Judy. Thank you so much for being here. You're welcome back anytime. You got an idea for a film? Let us know. We'd love to have you on. So tell us what you thought of our ideas. Go ahead and tweet at us on Twitter at SQPod. You can send us an email, SequelQuestPod@gmail.com. Go ahead and visit the website. You can go to SequelQuestPod.com, check out the schedule, what's coming up next, and feel free to leave us a review on iTunes and give us a 5-star rating.
And feel free to tell these gentlemen how lucky they are to have such wonderful wives.
Aww. And with that, we want to wish everybody a happy Valentine's Day. No more rhyming. I mean it.
Anybody want a peanut?
As you wish.
Bye-bye, boys. Have fun storming the castle.
We thank you for listening to this episode of SequelQuest and invite you to continue the fake movie fun on social media. Submit your ideas for future episodes to SequelQuestPod@gmail.com or SQPod on Twitter. The films and characters discussed on SequelQuest are the property of their respective studios and license holders. No copyright infringement is intended.
This has been a presentation of the Retro Network.